because that's what we do. We go full send and then
How tall can
we'll
these
do
get?
the whole thing. Maybe twice as tall if you wanted to go taller.
Because
We're going a little.
that's not gonna work. I was thinking I could.
Yeah, I know. I need to find like a good portable boom arm or something. I don't know.
They have the like table clamp ones, but they might not.
Yeah, that
support
might
the
ruin
weight.
my whole Pelican case. I think I'm just gonna do the lean. I'm just gonna sit on the edge of my seat,
Yeah.
captivated the entire time. But you guys are welcome to do whatever is comfortable for you. Just ooch this in. Yeah, but you're right. I think probably less handling,
It's much
and then I can
more-
just amp it up so we can have some distance. It's an intimate.
Fireside chat.
That's what I do. I do fireside chat. Welcome everybody to this special episode of Maker That Money, the podcast where we talk about turning your hobby into your jobby. We are live at the LBX, the first ever LBX here in Peoria, Illinois. And I've got two very special guests with me today. Very honored to have you. We've got Ms. Jen Schachter of Tested fame, but of course also of her own personal fame. And Mr. Bob Claggett. Am I saying it right? Clagget?
Yeah. That's
Okay,
it.
I don't know. I was always worried
done.
I would mess that up. Okay, good. Of the Kentucky Claggets,
Yeah.
I suppose. But we each had the opportunity to speak at this event. So, but before we go into that, I just want to go like, what is your guys' vibe? What do you feel like the vibe has been? Have you been enjoying the show? Anything particularly of note? Jen, what do you think?
It's been really nice geeking out with people about the things that occupy my brain a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like, I can talk openly about everything that preoccupies me about lasers and about business stuff, and other people are in the same headspace, which is really nice.
Yeah, a lot of kindred spirits here in the world. Bob, what any notable commentary from you?
No, it's kind of the same thing. It's really interesting to just be surrounded by, and we've all spent a lot of time at maker fairs and events like this where you're surrounded by people who are interested in things, but maybe different things. And
Sure.
this is a lot more funneled to a very specific interest, which I think is just super cool. And sitting down and talking with random strangers about materials and how light bounces around is just a weird, cool thing to get to do.
Yeah, yeah, you can go as deep as you want to go
Yeah,
with a lot of these people. One of the things that stand out for me is this is a more a business centric. There's a lot of people with small businesses at this thing, and I don't feel like I get as much of that at some of the 3D printing and other maker fairs that I've gotten, or maybe not as tight of a concentration of those people. And so really to have some conversation about, people starting up a thing or they're thinking about doing it, which is something I've always been passionate about, hence the podcast and all that stuff. But really, really nice component of the whole thing. So I do have to talk about the props in front of us here. Now, Jen, I did bring you a gift because when we were at Maker Faire last week, we'd shared a moment around some chocolate-covered pretzels, but they were not dark chocolate. And these are some of my favorite dark chocolate I brought. And Bob, I didn't want to let you feel left out, so you seem like you needed a mint, perhaps.
Oh, thank
so there's
you.
a mint for you.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Why don't you go ahead and pop that in right now?
Oh, apparently I need that.
I'll eat some pretzels and get
Apparently I
some
need
good
that.
ASMR.
We do need that ASMR.
Yeah, there you go.
Speaking of, I led off before I started. I went down this dark rabbit hole. Not so dark rabbit hole. It's an interesting rabbit hole of people that have these galvo lasers that are. They make just the wildest sound when you like engrave metal with them. Have you seen or heard any of this?
I have not.
Oh, it's wild. I'll have to post a link. But I just led the talk with it. Here's some nice ASMR laser sounds, and people are like programming them to play like 8-bit video game music and all kinds of cool stuff. So, again, things I just learned coming to a conference.
Would you care for a pretzel?
No, thank you.
I'm gonna have one because these are super good. And
My wife
yeah.
would go through the dark chocolate like nobody's business. Not my thing. So.
I went around the entire grocery store trying to find the dark chocolate, and I could only find milk chocolate. And of course, Alan was like, "This is inferior."
The dark. I was like, "How dare you?" And I still eat them because like they're like crack to me. It's just too good. Guilty pleasure, that sweet salty. But we're not here to talk about
Pretzels.
treats. Yeah. What I was hoping we could kind of chat on today, we've talked about a number of different ways as a maker to make money. whether it's selling product, which you guys have both done, whether it's to sell plans, digital files and assets, which you have both done, correct? Or something new that we haven't talked about, being a paid speaker at an event. I thought that was interesting. Now, Bob, we were talking ahead of the show. You've done this actually quite a bit, and you said you enjoy it, yeah?
I do enjoy it. It's a totally different kind of thing. It's a different kind of preparation for me than what I typically do, but I really like the opportunity to not have to edit in the same way that you do when you're making a piece of content.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep attention span up in a totally different way, and speaking engagements lets you really focus on something, but at the same time expand on that thing more than you'd get to in other places.
Yeah.
It's why I like podcasting too, because you actually have time to get a little bit deeper on anything. So
yeah,
speaking's like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Jen, have you had the opportunity to do a lot of public speaking engagement stuff?
I have. I've done a couple of Maker Faire, speaker panel things. I usually am I'm not always behind the scenes, but I organize a lot of events like this. So a lot of times I'm behind the scenes, with a puppet master, making sure everything works.
The woman behind smoothly. The curtain. Yeah. Okay.
I enjoy it. I think we talked about this the other day. It's like different presenting to a room full of people than it is presenting to a camera with people on the other side eventually.
Yeah.
Like today during my talk, people were asking questions and we could kind of like follow down a rabbit hole if that's the direction that the audience wanted to go.
Yeah.
Which that interactivity is more satisfying in some ways.
Yeah.
Also more nerve-wracking, but...
Yeah, it can be. I thought you handled it quite well. I mean, obviously you guys have done enough of this where it becomes, it's a muscle you've flexed and you've got, and we can always, improve and whatnot, but you seem very comfortable, and obviously there's overlap from what you do professionally with I like to make stuff and recording videos, but it is nice that you get to experience some different stuff, and it's an opportunity to, monetize yourself and your brand in a different way.
Yeah.
And probably, I guess it's a luxury of success to some extent where it's like you don't get invited. You kind of have to have the history to start to have the appeal to be a speaker a lot of the time.
Right. You're not going to get a cold call probably.
Yeah, you don't get just to jump into it. I'm just going to be a professional maker speaker. You kind of have to have some bona fides.
Somebody could probably figure out how to make that happen. But yeah, typically people
Yeah.
have to see you somewhere before they want you to be a part of their thing.
Right.
So
That's
Right.
interesting too, because I feel like by being invited, it implies some level of like, what you're talking about. Like,
I would hope so.
It elevates you to a certain status of like, you have something that you can be an authority about, which, like for what I was talking about, I was like, I don't consider myself an authority. I've done this. I've like, blundered my way through it, but I want this to be a conversation, and we're all learning from each other, kind of.
Sure, and you bring up the common thread for a lot of makers, the imposter syndrome feeling. We could always feel like, I'm looking at these people at this conference, and what I do feels so silly compared to like how the artistic talent. For example, in front of Jen, for those listening and not watching on YouTube, she's got one of her projects that she laser cuts and sells plans for, and the actual product. So, we can get into that in a bit. But you talked about this in your presentation, and obviously you have you just really incredible artistic talent that I just do not possess. Your ability. And I was one of the things about your talk that I really liked and appreciated that I don't think I'd heard somebody else do before, and it may be common. I just don't look at this stuff a lot. But the suggestions for how to decorate or embellish further, I thought was a really neat add-on. Like here's some ideas of how to like make it more Christmassy, or add snow or flocking or whatever the material would be. So well done on that. I like that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any way to kind of like differentiate it from all the other laser cut, blank wood stuff that's out there.
But to the point about the imposter syndrome thing, it's like, yes, we all feel like we could learn more and do more, but like you clearly have a lot of expertise, a lot of stuff to bring to the table, as does Bob. And we each kind of talked about some different stuff. I thought it was the whole conference has been interesting. There's been a nice variety and a couple different tracks for people to kind of follow along and pick and choose on. Bob, if you wouldn't mind, share what you got to speak about at this particular event.
So it was the same as you, where I had to put a title on a talk way before I wrote it. So I put a title on it that was something like Lasers in Your Workshop.
Yeah.
And what it ended up being was, you as a user bought this machine because you had an idea. You wanted to be able to make a thing with that. And
maybe, hopefully.
Hopefully, not necessarily.
Yeah.
But you probably had at least one idea. But I think a machine like a laser can be used in so many other ways in a workshop, all the way from end product to organization and jigs to make things more efficient and all that stuff. So I was really just trying to help them brainstorm just kind of some thought starters for ways that they could make the most of the thing that they spend a whole lot of money on.
Yeah.
That was the goal of it. And along the way, I tried to get people to add in their ideas, so it wasn't just me throwing out ideas. I'm not sure if that worked or not, but
I thought it worked fine. I will tell you, I really appreciated it. I was kind of surprised because, like I said, lasers in the workshop. I did the same thing. I just threw some generic stuff up there because I knew I was going to be doing this on the plane ride here.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I really enjoyed the. I'm a entrepreneurial geek, and so to hear you actually dive in and talking about vetting product ideas and things like that was unexpected and appreciated. I like that.
Good.
Yeah. And you even talked about little things like packaging and other outside use cases. I appreciated the fact that you were looking at just some good value. I think a lot of people were like, that's a great idea. Like, people are coming to these events for inspiration and ideas, so it's like they want those little nuggets, and it's nice that you gave them to them.
Well, I hope so. I mean, my main product is content. It has been for 10 years or so. But anybody that is in that business in any way, shape, or form knows that it can't just be that. It's got to be other stuff. And so, for a long time, we've constantly been looking for other ways to have different revenue streams and to make things faster and easier and more productive and more beneficial and all of that stuff. And so I've just spent a lot of time trying to do new things. I mean, honestly, that's what I get to do for a living, is just try to do new things.
Sure.
And so that affords a lot of failure and a lot of opportunity to make the most of any tool that I have access to or any skill that I've picked up along the way and stuff. So
yeah, and honestly, I feel like it makes you endearing to your audience in a different way. Is that a fair thing to say? What do you think? Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah,
I've been following your work for a long time, and I've taken some of your classes, the Fusion for Makers, and I think that
limited time only on sale, $108 by the way.
Yeah, sure.
No, I mean, I think that the way that you share your knowledge is very approachable and very, I don't know, it's sort of this calm, measured, I feel like I can actually watch a video and come out knowing about the process. It's not just a bunch of fast cuts, montage of this and
travel montage, music. No, it's not his style.
I appreciate that.
No,
it's nice to hear.
I agree. You come across as, and I've gone to a lot of events and interacted with a lot of creators, and it's always interesting to me to meet people in real life for the first time after watching them, behind the glass, I guess, or behind the fourth wall, or whatever you want to call it, and observe how they are. You are absolutely one of those types of people that just seem genuine through and through.
Yeah. Wow. I like this podcast.
Yeah, it's just this is the Flatter Bob podcast. Yeah. Welcome. And I would say same for you, Jen. You seem very comfortable, very personable, very bright and happy, and that's fantastic. And it's, I don't know, it's great. And it's not to say that when I meet people that aren't necessarily that way, that it's a bad thing. It's just been an interesting learning of people's mannerisms, and we were talking about it is a different muscle to flex when you are talking in front of a camera versus interacting with people live.
And the reality is, all of us and pretty much everybody has a different way that they interact naturally with people in front of them, small groups, big groups, with a camera, with where that thing that's going to the camera is going to end up. I mean, you psychologically just have a different way that you react to that, and all of us are different. And so it is weird to go to events and see someone's different type of interaction. This is not the thing you normally see.
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully not have it be. I've had a couple conversations with people, and nobody we know necessarily, but they're like, the don't meet your heroes thing, because like it somehow like they had him put up on a pedestal so high, and then it was just a little disappointing when they were just not interested in talking in person and stuff. And it can be overwhelming. Obviously, you guys have gone to plenty of big events where you're interacting with the public that you don't know, and that can be very draining of energy. And so it sucks in some ways when you don't have the opportunity to always put your best foot forward because you're just exhausted, and then you have that moment to make that impression. You can't win everybody over, I guess, all the time. So I don't know.
And see, I haven't done a whole lot of this in the last few years. I've traveled less. I've been to fewer events. But Jen's like every weekend going to a new thing and a part of all the things and doing talks at all the things, and it's a stamina that I don't have anymore.
Yeah, Jen, isn't this like your fourth week in a row now or something?
Third of four.
3 out of 4.
Weekends of Bay Area, weekend here at LBX, and next weekend at Maker Faire Orlando.
Oh man.
I don't normally do like an entire month of conventions.
That's a lot.
It's the maker circuit, the maker season. Maybe, I don't know. It seems like there's always something going on. There are more and more fairs and opportunities every year. But that's good. Well, I hope you're enjoying it and it's not too draining on you. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, going back to the kind of the speaking thing, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I've always said my style is more this fireside chat thing, and I begged the organizers multiple times, let me just run the panel, man. Like, I don't want to do the I can do the presentation. I would rather have a conversation. I like talking to people.
Right.
And I don't know where you guys feel like you landed. I see you mentioned that you wanted to have that two-way conversation. Do you have like some tips or tricks, or how do you engage an audience when you're doing this thing to try to make it feel more personable?
So I've done a few big talks like to a large group of people, and that is really weird. And especially because you go into a big room, most people want to sit in the back. And so that's one thing that makes it tough.
Stay out of the splash zone.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think the times that I've had what I feel like is success in those is trying to relate, not just like, hey, let me tell you my experience. Here's my experience about being who I am, and you get to watch me talk about that.
Yeah.
It's more finding a thing that they're going to identify with, and then like not commiserate, but just like have a thing. Like, look, we both go through this.
Yeah.
I did a talk one time about how it was 2 content creators, and how if you make type of content X and that's the thing you do, there's a good chance that you as a person are way more than that one type of content, but nobody gets to see that. And I was trying to explain to them that like I'm into this other thing and this other thing, and I feel this way about this and whatever, and that's not going to come out in a project video. So that's why live streams can be helpful, and that's why Instagram can be a different thing, and why podcasts are good, because you get long form talk, And so I start seeing people light up like, oh, maybe I should start a podcast so I can talk about macrame because I love macrame,
Who doesn't love macrame?
Exactly.
Man?
But so finding something that is not just me talking to people, but trying to draw things out of them, that's been successful, which is the same kind of thing as this, right? It's conversational, even if you can't hear what they're saying. So that's typically how I like to do the big talks that I do.
That's a good point.
It feels closer.
Yeah. No. What about you, Jen? What are your tips and tricks for engaging the audience?
I think along the same lines, like trying to find something that would be relatable. Like I think you actually said to me, Alan, that when I was talking about soldering thousands of LEDs for the run of kits that I did, and you were like, that was kind of like traumatic for me to relive.
It's a shared trauma moment.
Yeah, like we've all experienced, like you can start to smell the heat shrink like in the back of your mind. That and just being like, this is a process that, like I went to art school. I have a design background, so I'm like, okay, cool. I'm confident about the design piece of it, but I don't know as much about the business side of things and like how to. You're an expert at like optimization of workflow and
not
like,
an expert at anything.
I mean, you know a lot. You know a lot about it.
Enough to be dangerous, maybe. Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that train of thought. It's been
a shared trauma, engaging other people, that kind of thing.
Or just honestly, like being a little bit silly sometimes. Like I posted a picture of like at one point I had a whole stack of plywood kits filling up my living room, and it was during the pandemic, so I had a wedding to attend on Zoom. So I was wearing a dress, like a full, wedding guest dress. And I was like, wouldn't it be funny if I climbed on top of like my whole like wall
yes, it
of
would be.
kits?
Yeah.
So I did,
Yeah.
and set up a camera with a timer to like take pictures. And one of them was me falling off of the stack in like this ridiculous face that I made as I was falling. And I was like, I'm gonna put that in my top because why not?
That's great.
And that was, and you're talking, and I love that. You're absolutely right. I think that, having an ability to kind of make light of yourself or whatever, self-deprecating humor is a very relatable thing. And well done. I liked it. I thought it was very entertaining. It's not something you expect to see. I feel like, didn't you do a post on your Insta recently of that photo or something? I feel like I've seen it somewhere before.
Yeah, I've posted it before.
It's
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times I have this theory about social media and kind of like people on the internet where
the people of the internet.
The people of the internet. So my philosophy or my theory about this is that people want to they don't want to hear about like your vacation or your dog or whatever up until a certain point. So like if you're a celebrity, if you have a huge following, people want to know what you ate for breakfast, and people want to know like where are you on vacation with your kids. So there's this weird way in which we want to like humanize people that we don't normally get to interact with. Like we want to feel like we're related to their life.
Okay.
And I don't know. I mean, this is my personal feeling.
Sure.
So I don't know. I like the aspect of sharing things that's like, this is not just like the polished, curated version of me, but like this is normal life a little bit.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not a celebrity by any means, but like I like the idea that like we are all human behind the glass.
Yeah, it's relatable. One of the things I shared and talked about in mine was like I walked through my shop. Honestly, it was because it was last minute, but it was filthy. And I'm taking pictures. I'm like, hey, people, this is how the sausage is made.
Right.
I'm not doctoring everything here. Like you can see, yes, my lasers are filthy, and like this is do not share these images with OSHA with my questionable wiring, and I'm probably getting myself in trouble. But I do it for the same reason. I think that it's good to remind people that the internet is not real all the time, and what we're seeing there. Because I know that creates a lot of problems for people that don't have the right perspective on that. They're setting a standard that's unachievable a lot of the time. I don't know. You've probably been, Bob. You've probably been doing this longer than the both of us. How old's your channel now? If you mind?
It's about 10 years.
10 years, yeah. So it's been a minute. So you've interacted with quite a few people, both in real life, and on the internet too. Yeah. Have you noticed a change in that dynamic at all? Is there more vitriol? Is this just stuff people like to talk about, or is there shifts happening?
I mean, there's always a shift happening in one direction or the other, honestly, and it's changed a lot. The way people talk to each other and the way people talk to me and to the people I work with and stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like in the last few years, the general attitude towards me, this is the only experience I have, has become a little less judgmental, maybe is the way to put it.
Well, that's
which is
good.
nice.
Yeah.
It's the right direction to go.
Sure.
And I don't know if that's because of my skin is getting thicker, or I care less, or because I'm less engaged. That absolutely could be part of that. Mm-hmm. But the separation of me as a person and me as an online face entity thing, I think has become a lot more important to me over the last few years, and that could have a lot to do with just being me, not feeling like I have to present me as much, both not polish me, but also just not present me. I don't need to be available all the time. I don't need to be present and visible all the time to people. I'm just not that valuable. Not that I think I'm not valuable, but I recognize the difference between trying to get people to pay attention to you and giving those people something worthwhile. And so that's changed a lot about how I interact with social media and stuff in the last few years, which I think is also affected how I feel because of it.
Is that perspective, do you suppose, a luxury of just your experience and the time that you've spent? Like, I don't know that you can come to that appreciation without having lived all of that cycle. Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, and this is not what we were talking about, but I think honestly in like 2019, 2018, the social media pressure on me, that was probably self-imposed, got really bad, really not fun, really, pushed me away from wanting to do a lot of the things that I was already requiring myself to do. And I think because of that, I took a step back, and I think and reevaluated things. And so I think without that particular situation, I probably wouldn't have reevaluated my relationship with people that watch my videos and with my job to engage or not engage with them on social media.
Gotcha.
If that makes any sense. Yeah.
Jen, what's your feeling in terms of your experience over the years with the people of the internet, and then I guess the second part of that question would be, how do you juxtapose that against like your experience with the IRL in real life, for people not up on the abbreves, experience at shows like this?
I think the in real life experience has generally been, like, I want to say 100% positive, but like pretty positive. Like in person, people are enthusiastic and supportive. I mean, people aren't going to come up to you and be like, excuse me, that's not how you do that. Like that would be really weird in person.
Yeah.
I think that the culture of these types of events is much more generous, and like there's this, everyone's sharing information and like enthusiasm for things, whereas being a person on the internet, being a woman on the internet, there's a certain amount of, there's tons of people that are really supportive, but there's also like a whole subset of the comments that's like, well, actually, and
a whole nother layer of the actually guys, and I don't envy you in that regard. That has to be incredibly frustrating, and I see it, and it's hard to understand how to best be an ally to people like that sometimes when I look at it, and because unfortunately when we interact in the internet, we realize that just popping your head up oftentimes just allows it to get lopped off, whether you're trying to defend somebody or not. And so there's a tendency for people to I'm just going to back away from this. Right. But that's not necessarily being a good friend or an ally to people that are unfairly being attacked. I don't know. What's your experience been with that, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's something. It bothers me for other people, and I think a lot of, as a white dude,
coming from a place of privilege,
middle-aged
white guy right here,
coming from the best possible situation.
Yeah,
I'm often at a loss as how best to be, other than just stand up for people when I can stand up for people. My parents taught me that.
Yeah.
Often at a loss about how to affect goodness and fairness for people who aren't getting it. That's a tough thing. Yeah, I wish I had an answer to that.
I mean, this is quite a bit of a digression, but I find it really interesting. Like, again, it's hard for us. We cannot relate. We come from a place of privilege. We recognize our privilege. We do recognize our privilege. What, as a female maker, would you like to see more of? Do you just need to see more people coming to your defense? Is that even effective given just the way that this happens, or do we all just need to learn to just like ignore this and like move on? Like, what is the way? What would you like to see happen? That's a tough question.
You're speaking for all women.
Yeah. By the way, you're speaking for all women right now.
Yeah.
No pressure.
What do you got?
Well, I mean, what I can talk about is like what I and my friends and colleagues do, which is sort of like, if you see someone bullying them in the comments or saying something annoying or stupid, to engage and sort of be like, I'm not sure if that's what they actually meant by that or something. So occasionally we've like come to each other's defense. Also, there's a lot of back channel conversations about like, you know what you're talking about, like don't let this get to you kind of thing. I think overall it's just cultivating a culture of positivity, like as much as we all possibly can. I mean, the internet has this, this is not a new idea, but like the internet has this veil of anonymity, which allows people to, act a certain way without real consequence. But in person, I mean, I think there's a certain social etiquette that we all mostly follow about this is how you conduct yourself around people in real life when they can see you. So let's also conduct ourselves that way on the internet and realize that there's a real person behind that.
Yeah.
And it goes both ways. One of the I don't know, internet interaction stories that I really love is I think it was a couple of years back, Sarah Silverman had somebody on her Twitter saying something awful to her, and instead of throwing down and getting into the mud with them, she was just you seem like you're really upset about something that's happened to you in your life, and
who hurt you?
Who hurt you? And it turned into this whole beautiful exchange, and I'm if that could just be a model of how we all treat each other, there is a person on the other side, I think that would just make all of it a lot.
I'm so glad you rode this wave with me, because that's exactly where I was going. And part of the reason that I love these events so much is, one, because people are cowards in person as compared to say that to my face. The things that we want to say. And it's so true. It's so easy for people to hide behind the screen and this anonymity, but it's sad to me that people feel, I don't know if that's an outlet for people, if that's just it's clearly a mechanism for people to try to feel better about themselves or something. I don't know what it is. But you come to an event like this and it's positive, and you're oh, it's just a good reminder. And that's why I always encourage people to get involved with community, local, go do those. COVID was terrible for everybody, just kind of isolating and getting, and thinking virtual interaction was the same. It's nowhere near the same for this reason, that it's destroyed our idea of what normal human interaction is.
So Jen said something that one time about fostering community. You want to make the community that you want to have, right? Mm-hmm. As a group, we are in charge of making the group accessible to people, to everybody. Yeah. One time, Hank Green, who's an internet guy, love Hank, said something about his comment section. Somebody was asking about the comments in his videos and why he would ban somebody, because oftentimes I ban people and then I get these emails about you're censoring me and whatever. So Hank said this thing about that, the way the internet is, his comment section is his living room. And nobody would come into your living room, no matter who you're talking to. Yeah. And if they talk to you the way they talk to you in the comments, you would kick them out of, you would physically remove them from your living room. Yeah. He was why wouldn't I do that with my comment section? Yeah. And the thing that left with me was, we all have this pocket, whether it's our comment section or an event or a community within something that we can influence, we can prune as it needs to be pruned to create the environment that we want to have. And so even though I may not be around for all of the conversations that you run into, Jen, the things that you have to deal with, I can still prune the community to be a safe place so that stuff happens as little as possible. That is one thing that we have control over. Yeah. But I loved his living room.
That's fantastic. I hadn't heard that, and I love that, and I that's great. Yeah, no, of course. It seems like it's one of these obvious things you hear, and you're that makes a lot of sense.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't we all think of it that way?
That's one of the, sorry.
Go ahead. No.
I was these type of events. The reason that I do them, the reason that I have lined up 4 back to back and said yes to all of them, is because the connection that I'm able to have with both other creators who are making content and making building projects, and then also just the audience of the event, Maker Faire. There's definitely there's presenters and there's attendees. There is a unspoken kind of I don't know, kinship when you realize that you've been in your head, obsessing over this thing and thinking about it all the time and trying to solve certain problems, and you can connect with somebody else that's also in that headspace, like I was saying earlier, but also I don't know, at Maker Faire, I had an interaction with someone who had experienced Adam's Sunday sermon, and it really moved him. Mm-hmm. And he came up to talk to me about it, and we just had this really vulnerable, personal interaction, complete strangers. That wasn't even about the stuff that we were making. It was just about like the experience of being somebody who makes things and how your, you know, identity and your, you know, everything is sort of wrapped up in it. And kind of the whole, I don't know, just being able to relate to people, not just about the projects, but also about kind of like, what is this life that we have created for ourselves as, you know, sort of alternative ways of having an income. And I don't know, just feeling seen, feeling understood by other people that are kind of like,
well, we talked about this at dinner last night.
Yeah.
It's like, I think we both realized like these are our people, and it's interesting getting into these experiences because you start to interact with this bubble of people so much that it starts to make you question, or at least for me, like what is normal. You know, I was mentioning to Jen, I said like, I feel like I'm talking to a lot of people that are adults that are being diagnosed with ADHD in our circles, right? Like, and how much of that is a tendency for us to want to define things and medicate things in certain ways in this way? Is it because we're all makers and we all have this like shared tendency? Is there something about us that is that way? I don't know the answer to that, but I definitely think we look at these things and I'm like, yeah, I have moments where I'm just squirreling and doing all this stuff. And it is endearing to talk to those people and feel like they can relate. You don't have to spend the time to explain to them that, yeah, it took you all day to do this because like I was trying to do 5 different things at the same time. And I don't know. Do you have you experienced this yourself? Like, do you feel like you're amongst your people more at these things?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, I have some close friends around me at home, but I don't have a lot of close friends that I could explain, you know, some thing that we all do. So I could have an explanation with the two of you that you would absolutely get right away, and you would totally understand the struggle and the joy of a thing existing that didn't exist before. And that's not something you're going to get everywhere. So,
hoarding was another component of
yes,
that. I feel like we're as makers, we're all kind of hoarders,
well,
right?
Even you were talking about your shop being dirty earlier.
Yeah.
And but like every person who's at this event has that experience. Even if they're a clean person that cleans their shop, they know that that's a situation that happens because of what you do. And you know, you could talk to somebody that's in an entirely different industry, and they're going to be like, "What, a shop? What do you mean? Like your store?" Like, you know, it's just a different set of language and a different set of shared experiences. So.
For sure. You brought up in your talk about the most valuable thing that we all have, and probably one of the biggest fallacy. I don't know if it's a fallacy, but like when we talk on this podcast a lot about the challenges of makers starting a business is not valuing your time properly, and it's probably the number one thing. And you brought it up in your talk as well today, Jen. I don't know if you guys can speak to for a moment about that. Bob, you brought up, you know, this is the most precious thing that you can give of people. And by the way, I'm appreciative of you guys giving your time to me for this. But
I'll send you a bill.
Yeah, I fully expect that. But talk a little bit more about what you've learned over the years as you're doing this, and how to value your time and how to prioritize what you do.
That's a hard thing to talk about. So
how much time we got?
Yeah, seriously. Let's hit pause, come back and
unravel that.
So I mean,
ball of yarn.
Honestly, the thing that I was trying to just briefly impress on people is that, you know, we, especially when things are going well, we assume that we have all the time in the world to do things, to accomplish things, to be all the things that we want. But you know, as I've moved further in my life, I have been able to do a lot of things, but I look at the list of things that I have not even touched yet, the things that I've always wanted to do that are still out there that I may get to, I may not. You know, you start to realize that some of that stuff is never going to get checked off the list. And so with the time that I have, both at a big scale and at a day, you know, I've got an hour to do something right now scale, how can I make the most of that? And if I'm wasting any of that opportunity at big scale or small scale to do something that I could do better, could do faster, it's waste. It's a thing that you cannot get back. You cannot order more of. Amazon cannot bring you time. And so the more you waste it, the more you devalue it, the more you're just like kind of hurting your future and what you have to take advantage of. And I think unless you are generally conceited about who you are, you don't value your own effort and your own time enough.
Yeah.
Both in like it being a consumable, but also just like you're special. You have unique skills and unique offerings. And if you don't value that in the way that you should, you're missing out. You know?
Well, I mean, that you're clearly preaching to the choir because we're all very humble people here, and some more humble than others. But you're absolutely right, and it's an interesting perspective. I don't think I've ever thought of it this way. Like, there will be things that I never check off the list. That's,
man.
I don't know if I feel depressed about
Oh,
that.
it's
I'm
terrible.
trying.
It's terrible.
Yeah, or I just intend to live forever or die trying.
Yeah, I've had that. It's sort of a, I guess it's sort of a morbid thought, but I've thought about like, what if, like, if you could see that like the end was about to happen, like you're on the highway and the truck is like in your lane coming straight at you, and you've got like 20 seconds to think like it's about to be done.
Yeah.
I feel like the things that would be running through my head are like obviously like thinking about all the people I care about in my life, and the second thing on that list would be like all of the projects that aren't finished and like the
finishing
ideas
that
that haven't
rosewood
come
guitar
out.
neck that you've
The
always...
ideas that haven't come out of my head is like, no, wait, but I haven't solved that problem yet. Like I have thought about that often.
Really?
Of like, yeah,
Oh,
of like
wow.
what would happen if like I, you know, because I think we all have, as makers, we have this like need to continue exploring something and like solving a problem until we feel like we've seen it from all sides, and leaving something unfinished is like with my talk even, I was like, I'm like incapable of doing something halfway. Like I have to see it through and put as much effort as like every minute that I have available to do it, I'm gonna do, put into it. But yeah, the idea of just like leaving things unfinished is like, that's terrifying. But it's, I mean, it's like, but it's also like, for the reasons that you're saying, it also means that your time has to be worth more because it is a finite resource. And just like doing the product business and kind of being more green on the side of like content creation and monetizing my creative skills. Seeing Bob, somebody like you who is in all of these different sort of avenues of your business. You've got content creation, products, and plans, and tutorials, and all this stuff. And you seem like, I mean, I don't know you personally, but like it seems outside that you have a really solid balance of like who you are and like protecting that from not protecting it from your business, but like having, you know, like a family and like, you know, not being all in, this is all that I do, I am only my work. And I think there's a tendency to do that as you're getting started, as I'm getting started, to go all in. And it's like, take a step back, think about what your time is actually worth, what you want to be spending your time doing. Like, do I want to be spending 80 hours, you know, wrapping kits and putting labels on boxes? I don't know. Maybe it would be more valuable if I take a little bit more cut out of my profit and hire someone to do that. Like,
well, and are you done? I didn't want to
go ahead.
So, and there's like two things that I have gotten to over this thing that I've been doing for a while. One is that life has seasons, like life has chapters, however you want to think about it. And so, you know, just because you are doing something right now, just because you're investing yourself in your business or in your family or in your interest or whatever, it doesn't mean you have to continue to do that. And also, a lot of people have this assumption about me that I have this like really perfect balance of all the things that I do. And a lot of people have asked me, and I've done talks about work-life balance. And the way that I look at that is not work-life balance. I think that implies that there is a balance point that you have to find and hold. But I think it's balancing. My work and my life are two things that need me in totally different ways on any given day. So my kids, sometimes I need to be dad more than I need to do anything else in the world. Sometimes, more often than not, they don't care if I'm around or not. So they are busy, they are doing things. And the business is the same way. Sometimes I have to be fully in on it or mostly in on it to keep it going.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can run without me. A video went out this morning and I had nothing to do with it. And that's amazing that
That's
is
awesome.
even possible.
Yeah.
But I think the point being that you have to be more than trying to find the balance point, because it's going to change all the time. is just trying to be aware and be receptive to what needs you the most at any given time, and be willing to kind of lean that direction while you have to.
Yeah, well said. We kind of talked about this on the plane on the way here. You talk about the life's chapters and stuff like that, but I think as a maker, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, a lot of the time we lose sight of the fact that our constant perception is that we got to grow, which means like we have to make more money, we have to have more employees, we have to have a bigger shop, like all that stuff, and that's perpetuated by a lot of the internet lifestyle. Like we want to show this grandeur and all that stuff, but the truth is, it's not. The way that I've seen people do well that feel balanced to me is the exception of there's times of expansion and times of contraction.
Yep.
And I think you're articulating that in the same way. And sometimes we just have to be more forgiving of ourselves when we're in a contraction phase and feeling down about the fact like, oh, this has been a bad year, I should have been growing, or I had to, all this stuff. And we don't allow ourselves that in the same way.
Contraction is not necessarily loss.
No.
It's not necessarily failure.
In fact, a lot of times it's gain of other things, like mental health again.
Yes.
And
think
all
about
sorts
how
of
you
other
breathe.
Stuff. Oh, yeah.
You breathe that way, right?
Oh, that's a great analogy. I love that.
It's a necessary part of the whole thing, and it's really easy with the culture to think that contraction or doing less or being choosy about what you do is losing things, is leaving things on the table, is loss of opportunity. And that might be the case, but it's not always the case.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jen, I wonder if you can elaborate just a little bit more, as you did on your speech. Just talk about like the time value of money as it relates to business. So when you are going through the process of soldering 100 of things, we talked after the fact. I'm like, nobody really understands how much.
No.
Yeah.
Makers are great at like, oh, I can make this, but then there's a completely different thing. You said this well in your speech. There's a world of difference between making one thing, making 100 things, making 1,000 things, and a lot of times you just don't even understand how much of 100 of something is until you actually have to sit down and do it. It doesn't sound like it's a big number.
It doesn't.
I don't know why, but then you're like, I've been doing this all day, and I'm not paying myself appropriately for it. So speak to that for a moment, if you would.
A lot of trauma associated with that. I mean, it was one of those things where like I didn't realize that I was drinking from a fire hose, because like I designed a kit, not this one, a previous kit, and we made a tested video about it, and I put an Etsy storefront together, and I was sitting there when the video launched watching, like, I put 30 or 50 or something of them available. Mm-hmm. And as they started to sell out, I was like, oh, well, I'll just add 10 more. Oh, I'll add 10 more. Like, this is great. So many people are interested. And at a certain point I was like, okay, that's like 250 kits.
Oh my gosh.
And these were pre-orders, by the way. Like, I didn't already have them in existence. So I came to understand that the demand, because of the visibility of that platform, was massive. Yeah. But I, as one individual that is just figuring out this whole manufacturing pipeline, I created a monster for myself. And I will say that project was sort of profitable. I paid myself less than minimum wage, essentially, when I figured out my time. Yeah, but the thing that was actually really valuable out of that was not the actual cash return on it, was all of the learning that I got about how not to do that again. As I was soldering LEDs for 40 hours a week, just thinking how can I not do this again?
I'm shaking his head.
It sounds so terrible.
It was I did this to myself. I am my own worst boss. But it's not something that you necessarily talk about, unless you went to business school, I assume. Yeah. Where you have to break down each piece of the process and figure out how long is this actually going to take me, and how can you optimize your workflow and your files, and do things as assembly line, as opposed to you're not just doing one whole thing from start to finish. You're I'm going to do 400 of these all at once, and it'll be faster because it just gets to be muscle memory. So doing the math actually to be okay, one of these kits takes me 2 hours in total production time, from putting the piece of plywood on the laser cutter to putting the mailing label on it and taking it to the post office. How much time is that going to take? Yeah. And how much is my time worth?
Right.
How much am I paying myself hourly? And what, beyond monetary value, what am I getting out of this? Am I doing this just because I feel like I need to sell kits, or am I getting something out of the interaction that I get with people when I sell these? because designing it once is like fun and exciting, and I'm solving all these problems and like, cool, I made this thing.
Yeah.
But once I've done this 200 times, like I hate it and I
Right.
don't want to look at it anymore. And it's
Right.
like, okay, then why? Like, this is not the part of the process I enjoy. So let me see if I can outsource this piece of the process to, you know, other folks who do different aspects of it, and then keep the part of the process that I really love, which is like the prototyping and designing stage of all of it. And figuring out where to place your focus so that you're not devaluing your time and not getting the actual outcome that you got into it for in the first place.
Sure. Bob, what's your story that's like it runs in parallel with Jen's here? Because I know you've got the same experience at some point when you may have to think back further, but like, you know, did you get overly ambitious about the idea of like doing something and then it just became?
I mean, videos, like weekly videos.
Videos.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
What kind of an idiot thinks they want to make weekly videos for 10 years? Like that's, I mean, even with people.
My favorite kind of idiot, Bob.
Even with people to help, you know, even with people who are highly competent to help take care of a lot of the stuff, the pace of setting up a business around this constant output of a piece of content that, you know, when you work backwards from it, you have the post-production, and then you have the editing, and then you have the shooting, and then you have the pre-production, and then you have the actual building that you're doing, and then you have the design for that building, and then you have the idea about how the video is supposed to, like the story building and stuff that's you know, and all of that stuff has to happen before you can actually put anything out into the world. And by the time you do that and you hit post, then you turn around and you start at the beginning again, and you do that. And like on a weekly schedule, absolutely unsustainable. Absolutely a terrible idea. If you're thinking about starting YouTube, don't do that. And so
More what not to do, which by the way was the subject or the title of your Jen's speech today.
Yes.
The things not to do to start, how not to start a laser business, right? Yeah.
But I think it's the same situation that you're talking about, Jen. It's where you don't actually think about all those individual components and how much time they take, and how exhausting repetitive action can be. And then when you just back it up against the same process over and over and over, it's exhausting, and it's not really scalable.
Yeah.
And I think, like with a product business, it's one of those things that you just have to start breaking down and finding how to make the parts of it scalable and outsource and all that.
Sustainability is something we try to talk about a lot, and unfortunately it's one of these things that you just, until you've lived it, how you've lived the seasons and all that stuff, you don't fully grasp it. I know you get excited. I have similar stories to Jen's where it's just like, oh, this is amazing, I sold 500 of these, and then when I break it down, I'm like, if these take me 2 hours each, that's 1,000 hours. Where am I going to get 1,000 hours to do all of this stuff, right? So we're going to have to, that's a massive topic, and I'm conflicted because when you're getting started, you don't have the resources to hire people and do all this stuff. Sure. Like, you just kind of have to bite the bullet, but you have to appreciate that while you're not getting the financial gain, as Jen said, you're actually getting some really good education that is highly, highly valuable. So hopefully you do it better the next time.
So on that topic, we did a small group of products last Christmas time, last holiday season. We had this kind of small run of these push sticks that we were manufacturing in-house. And Josh had figured out this whole production process that we could do it all in the office with CNC and laser, and we were building our own packaging and all this stuff.
Okay.
And so we had this process in place, and he came back and said, like, what is my goal? Like, what does success look like at the end of this season? How do I know if we did well or not? And the only answer I had for him was incredibly frustrating to him. But the point was not that we profit, it's that we learn what to do next time. Which makes me sound like I really know what I'm talking about. And the truth is, I didn't think we would make a lot of money, but at least we could figure out whether it was a thing worth doing again, or if it was something we could optimize towards making money, or if it was something we needed to cut off the vine.
Interesting.
And what was your takeaway?
Yeah, what did you learn? Not to do it again?
We learned not to do it again.
Oh, okay.
Or, well, actually, what we really learned was not to open-end an order. And to say that, like, look, we make this thing now. We should just make a bunch, and we're going to ship them as soon as we can. Yeah. Terrible idea. Don't ever do that. So if we do them again in the future, it will just be, we're going to pre-make a small batch, and then we're going to sell that batch. And then sales are closed until the next batch is done.
I think that's a fantastic strategy. One, because it creates some FOMO for people, which is highly valuable, scarcity and all that stuff. And two, especially as a creator, a lot of people want to be able to get something special, right? And so you create that limited thing, and they're acting on it. So I think that's a great strategy, and it's predictable. Like, hey, we only have to figure out how to make 100 of these, or 500, or whatever the number is.
And your loss is not as great if those 100 or 500 don't sell, right?
You're capping your exposure.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, guys, I'll have to have you back for another one of these. You're just wealths of information, and I appreciate your time immensely. Speaking of time, we still have more conference to go to. I've got a panel to run in about 30 minutes. I want to thank you guys both so much. Why don't you just really quickly tell people where they can find you on the internet if they're unaware. Jen?
I am at Shack Attack.
How do you spell that?
SCHAC_attack. My name actually has 2 H's in it, but that would confuse the heck out of people. So I just did Shack Attack.
Okay.
And I'm on Tested occasionally on the YouTube channel, so you can find me there. And my Etsy store, if you want to go buy some laser kit
go check out her stuff. Yeah. Awesome. What about you, Bob? Where can people find you?
All of our stuff is at iliketomakestuff.com. That's the path to get to everything else.
That's easy.
Yeah.
That's nice and easy. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of the show. And like I said, we'll have you back soon.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.